Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro Movement. On today's episode, occasional delayed onset muscle soreness is probably okay and probably desirable. A couple of episodes back, we at length talked about how delayed onset muscle soreness, otherwise known as DOMS, is not a badge of honor, and in complete opposition to how the traditional, typical modern fitness industry approaches this. It's not desirable to come away from training sessions with muscular soreness, either immediately or that day or two after, like what DOMS is. But on this episode, and I kind of prefaced this again in that episode a couple back, on this episode, we do just want to talk about a couple of situations where, look, some occasional DOMS is probably okay. So the first thing to point out here is that it is impossible to completely regulate your training so that you never accidentally overdo it. The reality is that in the real world, we sometimes are going to go and do things that are really hard. We're going to pull up really sore from it. This could happen in a number of different ways. This could happen, for example, if you haven't trained for a little while, and maybe so your body, whatever reason, like you've gone on holiday for a week, you've had a great time at the beach, you've gone for some swims in the ocean and stuff, but you haven't really been doing a lot. You've generally been chilling out. You come back with like heaps of energy and you dive into a training session, right? And so your body's a little bit deconditioned from a week or two off. Let's say it was Christmas, you had 3 weeks off even, whatever. You've had a week or two or a couple of weeks off. You come back, your body's a little deconditioned to it. You got heaps of energy though, and you dive in, you overdo it, you get a little bit sore. Nothing's gonna happen from that, right? When you haven't been training for a little while, it's easy to dive in a little bit too hard and overdo it, and there's not gonna be any problem to doing that whatsoever. The other point to make here though, is that going hard occasionally is good for triggering adaptations in the body. Now, we have a previous episode talking about why regular intensity is a problem because it leads to movement dysfunction. But going hard occasionally is a really good way to add that new stimulus, get the body to adapt to your training. And if we think about this from an evolutionary point of view, think about the situations when our ancestors probably went really hard in their day-to-day lives. It was probably things like running for their lives, right? Which wouldn't have happened on every given day, but would have happened every now and again. If it did happen on every given day, they'd have been sore every day, and it would have reduced then their abilities to be functional, on subsequent days, and that wouldn't have been a particularly optimal situation for their long-term survival. But the point that we're getting at here is that while DOMS certainly shouldn't be worn as a badge of honor in our day-to-day training, it shouldn't be something that we are seeking to achieve regularly. If it happens occasionally, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can use it. And this is an interesting point here that I just stumbled into with my terminology there. So just slight deviation here. I said we can use DOMS. The DOMS is the side effect, right? The training stimulus is what will get the adaptation. So the training stimulus is what will generate the outcomes that you want and what will generate the DOMS. The DOMS doesn't cause the training adaptation that you want, right? There's no causal link between I am sore and therefore I am getting better and stronger. It's a side effect of having done this particular type of training that made you sore and also triggered adaptation. But other sorts of training that don't make you sore can also trigger adaptations, right? And so this is a little bit of a problem. Again, even just with the terminology there, I fell into the trap of implying that the DOMS was causative of getting good outcomes. It's not. So let's reframe that. It can definitely be beneficial to occasionally do training of such a type or nature that causes delayed onset muscle soreness, because it also is a very strong trigger for adaptations. We don't want to do it all the time for the reasons we talked about in the previous video, but occasionally to kick us out of a rut or just to give that little impetus, it's not a bad thing at all. It probably fits very nicely with the frequency with which we had those types of intensities of exertion in our ancestors' lives. And it's also going to pop up from time to time just by accident, like, for example, when returning to training. So the golden rule here is don't wear it as a badge of honor. Don't wear muscle soreness as a badge of honor. Don't do training that causes muscle soreness every single day. It's not the only way to get better, stronger, fitter, move better, whatever. But yeah, do use it occasionally as a trigger to get particular certain adaptations, specific adaptations. Okie dokie, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Ideanthro Movement. If you liked this episode or found it interesting, give us a like or a subscribe. If you would like to find out more about what it is we do at Ideanthro Movement, go to ideanthro.com/movement. You'll find details of our facility in Oxley, Brisbane, Australia, and also at some point in the future, we'll have some online training there. If you do want to potentially become a member of our facility in Oxley, then you can come down for a free trial, ideanthro.com/free-trial. And if you just want to generally get in touch, maybe suggest an episode idea, maybe talk about what we talked about here today, then go to ideanthro.com/connect. Okie dokie, thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time.